All right, Saagar, what's on your radar?
Well, the so-called results, or I guess partial results, of the Iowa caucuses came out yesterday around 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We didn't get any real clarity into who won or lost. The partial results, they got a little bit of play before President Trump took the stage for the State of the Union address, which washed out any hope of the widespread coverage the winner of the Iowa caucuses actually deserves. Tomorrow, the same thing will happen, as President Trump is going to get acquitted tonight by the United States Senate in a possible bipartisan vote, which might even be more hilarious. And as you all heard from me yesterday, the complete erasure of the Iowa caucuses essentially breathes life into Joe Biden's failed presidential campaign. He avoided hundreds of millions of dollars in negative media coverage because of the reporting failure, and he lives to fight another day in New Hampshire. Now, based on the partial data that we have of the popular vote totals of 71% Iowa precincts, Biden got fourth place by a country mile. He got so few votes that Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg each got nearly double his vote totals, and he appears to have underperformed his polls by approximately 6 to 7%. In short, it is a catastrophe for him. And Biden's apparent implosion in Iowa, the elevation of Pete Buttigieg, makes a scenario I highlighted on Monday even more likely. Pete Buttigieg is going nowhere after New Hampshire. His lackluster support with Black and Latino voters barely merits his mention as a serious candidate. Elizabeth Warren basically in the same boat. Sanders will continue, but the establishment is not going to just let this thing end so easy. A very smart man saw all of this dynamic, and that's why Michael Bloomberg told his team yesterday he was authorizing them to literally double the amount of money that they would spend on TV ads and increase his number of paid staffers to 2,000 across the country. It's an obscene amount of money. It could surpass $500 million when all is said and done in just the next few weeks. The New York billionaire who amassed his fortune betting on stocks sees an obvious opportunity here. Per the New York Times reporting, Bloomberg's entire bet is predicated on the weakness that he sees in Joe Biden. He wants to amass as many delegates as possible across Super Tuesday states where he may not exactly be able to acquire enough to win the nomination. He can certainly begin to build coalitions with like-minded candidates and power brokers to swing the nomination any way in which he chooses. Here's the thing. I really think it could work. Right now, Bloomberg is tied with Elizabeth Warren nationally for third place in the latest Morning Consult poll. He spent the Iowa caucuses traipsing through California, where reporters say he drew curious crowds, including Biden supporters who told the newspaper they thought that Bloomberg's immense wealth offered Democrats the best chance to beat Donald Trump. It's absolutely plausible, given the media and establishment opposition to Sanders so far, that places like MSNBC, CNN, and the Democratic establishment go all in for Michael Bloomberg. These people are already tools of American oligarchs. They would love nothing more than to see one of their preeminent masters rise to the top of the pyramid. He's already scored the endorsements of San Francisco and D.C. mayors. According to the Times, he's wooing Biden's people. Never, ever underestimate the power of $500 million in American politics. If advertising didn't work, then brands wouldn't pour most of their money into it. And Crystal, after I wrote this, Michael Bloomberg drew a crowd of 1,400 people in the city of Philadelphia. A couple of miles away from Joe Biden's presidential campaign headquarters, the man drew a crowd larger than Joe Biden ever drew in the Iowa caucuses.
Yeah.
He's going all through California. And one of the things that highlights to me about Bloomberg is he's actually making the case, backed up by a tremendous amount of money, that Biden should be making. The competence. Let's go back to a technocratic age in which we tinker around the edges. And here's the most crazy thing to me, is in that New York Times story, there was a quote from a woman who was talking to them and said, why do you like support Bloomberg? They say, because of his money, he'll beat Donald Trump. And that shows me the system is so broken that they say, we must resort to one of the 9th richest man in the world, one of the oligarchs, but at least he's our oligarch, because they know elections are bought and paid for. Mm-hmm. Think about that. They have so little faith in democracy, they want somebody to buy the election
at least we can have somebody for us game the system.
That is so demoralizing to me.
There was an Onion headline that said, DNC floats running Trump in an effort to stop Bernie. But that's what it collapses down to. And it also is what collapses down when you say, I just want to win, right? Then you can end up with an actual oligarch who was a Republican until a minute ago, who backed George W. Bush, still supports the Iraq War, backed John McCain, right? I mean, stop and frisk, the whole bit, cutting Social Security, paid a solidarity visit to Goldman Sachs. That's my personal favorite. And yet we can't ignore the appeal that he actually has for a set of voters that is very real. Because yes, money can get you a lot, but you have to have a product that people actually want to buy. Hillary Clinton had a lot of money.
Nobody wanted to buy that.
Right? People didn't want to buy the product. He has both, there is an image of competence from his time as mayor, and I think also there is a public sort of mythologizing of the billionaire businessman and what that means
You've
and
talked
whatever
about this a lot,
that he very much benefits from. But okay, so two things that I want to say. First of all, number one, if you've ever called yourself a progressive, you cannot support Michael Bloomberg. I mean, that's just the reality. I mean, you cannot support a man who is literally buying the election, who is as right-wing as they come in terms of the Democratic Party, who's barely even a Democrat. If you are supporting Michael Bloomberg, you are not a progressive. That's number one. Number two, I think Sanders is very well positioned right now in that the danger for him that we've talked about is everybody coalescing around one candidate, and that has to happen fairly quickly.
Yes, it does.
That is not happening right now. With Pete winning Iowa, Warren's got money, she's going to hang in there. Biden's still going to limp along for quite a while now. There's no real coalescing behind one main alternative. That is a benefit for Bernie. But if I were to give his team advice, I would say as soon as you get out of New Hampshire, you need to go scorched earth on Bloomberg.
Yes.
He's a great foil for Bernie. You couldn't ask for a better foil.
Right, yeah, literally an oligarch. Yeah.
Could not ask for a better foil. But he needs to up the heat on him in a way that he has not done with any other candidate. And maybe he will here, because this isn't a person he's friends with in the Senate. He doesn't have that long collegial relationship to keep him from doing that. But that is really what his team needs to be gearing towards and looking towards. Bloomberg being the real threat at this point, and not so much, I mean, look, we'll see what happens in New Hampshire, but I think the wheels are coming off Joe Biden very
Wheels
quickly.
are coming off Joe Biden. Here's the thing. Michael Bloomberg may not win, but maybe Bernie won't win the total number of delegates that he needs either. And with that stratified field and all of this going on and Bloomberg and Steyer, it's a very realistic possibility. So you could head into a situation, you have a plurality of delegates, but Bloomberg's number 2, Tom Steyer's number 3, and Amy Klobuchar's number 4. They get to decide who wins the election.
I don't think they have the guts to do that.
I'm not sure.
Because they would destroy,
they would destroy
the Democratic Party, and they would 100% lose to Trump. And I don't think they have the guts to do it, but I would not rule it out.
You don't make $60 billion by being a nice guy and by not taking tremendous risk. I think he's very willing to do that exact scenario. Not exactly everybody could control. Maybe the DNC can't even control him. And I think all of us need to turn our attention now to Bloomberg. Max Alvarez said on this show.
I'm personally glad he's going to be on the debate stage, because he needs to be a focus of conversation.
Max Alvarez said on the show, I'll end with this. He said, the idea is that because he's worth $60 billion that he can't be bought by special interests. But $60 billion is a special interest. That is the Wall Street financial global elite. China is rooting for Michael Bloomberg, and anybody with large paychecks or large pocketbooks is too, because they know he fights for them because he is one of them.
That's it. Yeah. Next up on Rising, presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg's camp has got to be pumped this morning.
We talked to a surrogate of the former South Bend mayor to get perspective on Iowa debacle and the new game plan for New Hampshire. That's when Rising continues.